Namaste and a very, very good evening to all of you who are joining us from India. A good day, good afternoon, good morning to whoever is joining us from other parts of the world. It is my great pleasure, privilege, and honor to be with all of you once again for our YouTube live session. It's always such an incredible joy and pleasure to be able to interact with all of you, our lovely, dynamic, incredibly supportive YouTube community, and to do these meaningful discussions and these meaningful conversations with all of you. I'm always very grateful to all of you for your support, for your love, for your kindness. Very grateful that you take your time out to follow our work on our YouTube channel. Very grateful that you've taken your time out today as well to join us for this live interaction, for this live session. So, right at the very outset, thank you all very, very much for joining us this evening. Of course, we did one live session, I think, about a month back, and this is probably the first live session of 2022, right in the month of January. And I'm hoping that we could continue this momentum and do more live sessions through the year, at least one a month, so we can meet like this personally and chat, talk, discuss, churn the wisdom, and see how this wisdom can transform our lives. Once again, thank you all very much for joining. Kaushal, Vaishnavi, Satyamurthy, Anushri, Preeti Maitri, Guru Manga, Rishabh Yadav. So grateful that you've joined us, Shori Sharma, Riya Dikshit, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shyam Gopal Shroff, for joining. And yes, Bikash Kumar and Purnima, Sayed. Thank you so much for taking your time out and being with us this evening. I read a very beautiful couplet, a very beautiful shairi by the popular late Urdu poet Bashar Nawaz. He said a very interesting thing. He said, उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आया तो वो भागते गए. उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आया तो वो भागते गए. They saw satisfaction, peace in success, so they kept running after success. हमें सुकून में कामयाबी नजर आई तो हम ठहर गए. We saw success in satisfaction, peace, so we stopped running after just achievements. उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आया तो वो भागते गए. हमें सुकून में कामयाबी नजर आई तो हम ठहर गए. ख्वाहिशों के बोझ में बशर तू क्या कर रहा है? This poet Bashar Nawaz, addressing himself, is saying, ख्वाहिशों के बोझ में बशर तू क्या कर रहा है? Being burdened by your desires, fulfillment of all these desires for things and stuff and power. ख्वाहिशों के बोझ में बशर तू क्या कर रहा है? What are you doing? इतना तो जीना भी नहीं है जितना तू मर रहा है. You probably are not going to even live as much as you are dying to get all of these things. I'll repeat it all in Urdu once again. Such a beautiful composition by Bashar Nawaz. उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आया तो वो भागते गए. हमें सुकून में कामयाबी नजर आई तो हम ठहर गए. ख्वाहिशों की बोझ में बशर तू क्या कर रहा है? इतना तो जीना भी नहीं जितना तू मर रहा है. Ladies and gentlemen, isn't it a fact that in the world we are dying more than living? We are dying every single day, running after gathering all this stuff, power, control, position, wealth. We're all running to fulfill those desires. And the reason we are all running to fulfill those desires is we think that having achieved all of these things can bring us joy, can bring us happiness, can bring us fulfillment. Somebody very beautifully said, if you take the sky and make it a paper, if you take a mountain and make it into a pen, and you take the ocean and turn it into ink that can be loaded in that pen, the paper, which is the unlimited sky, will get over. in writing our desires. The pen, which is the mountain, will probably break. The ocean, which is like the ink, will be over and exhausted. But the desires of our heart will still not be over or exhausted. The list can be endless. The fact is, in the world today, people make relationships with things. People start loving things. In fact, we are in love with things. And it's not a problem to love things. The problem is we can love things, but things cannot love us back. We as a person have the ability to love, but things as dead matter do not have the ability to love back. You can go and fall in love with your car, but the car can't love you back, and therefore the car becomes bekar in loving you. You can fall in absolute love with your house and your fancy home, but that fancy house or that fancy home cannot love you back. You can fall in love with your wealth and your money, but your wealth and your money doesn't have the potential to love you back. And therefore, when we have a relationship with things, when we make a relationship with power, when we make a relationship with wealth, when we make a relationship with control and position, it's okay to fall in love with them and make a relationship. The inherent limitation that all of these things have is they can't love us back. And in a relationship, we need both. We need to love, but we also need to have the reciprocation and feel loved. And therefore, when we just love things, the limitation of their not being able to love actually disqualifies things in terms of making a relationship with things. Relationships are always with a person. And they are with a person because we can love, and in reciprocation, the person can love us back as well. Because things cannot love us back, they can't fulfill our souls, they can't fulfill our hearts, they can't satisfy the burning craving of our hearts to be loved. Whereas when we are interacting with people, making relationships, meaningful bonding and relationships with people, that relationship is truly a relationship because they can love us back. And that interactive love, that two-way love, of both-sided reciprocal love, can bring satisfaction, fulfillment, and joy to the soul. And therefore we say, love is indeed the ruling force of this world. Now we have so many relationships where we love people. We have relationships with our family, our parents, our siblings. We have relationships with our friends. We have relationships with our colleagues. We have relationships with our spouses, lovers, partners. And often we may neglect to have a relationship with our own selves and love our own selves. दूसरों को प्यार करते करते कई बार हम खुद को प्यार करना भूल जाते हैं, और जो खुद को प्यार नहीं कर पाता वो दूसरे किसी को प्यार नहीं कर पाता. One who is not able to love themselves, those people who can't love themselves, lack the ability to love others. And this is going to be a discussion for another live session, which is self-love as the foundation for loving others. But today we are talking about something else, to be honest. In all of these relationships that we may have, parents, siblings, friends, colleagues, partners, spouses, lovers, whoever they may be, with all these relationships that we may have, the flavors may be different. The dynamics may be different. The interactions may be slightly different. The details may be different. But the foundational principles remain the same. Principles never change. A lighthouse always remains in its fixed position. You cannot change the lighthouse. The ship has to navigate through the ocean in relationship with that lighthouse. If the lighthouse doesn't move, the ship has to move and align itself with the lighthouse. Principles are like that lighthouse. We are all like the ships. Ships in a relationship. हम सब ship हैं. Relationship में के ships है. और हम सब ships को हमारे relationships में उस lighthouse principle के साथ align करना पड़ेगा. Whether it's a loving relationship with your parent, your sibling, or your boyfriend, or your girlfriend, your husband, or your wife, your partner, whoever it is with, those principles are very important. ये principles समझना, उन मूल्यों को समझना, उन सिद्धांतों को समझना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है, बहुत ज्यादा अनिवार्य है, क्योंकि जब तक इन principles को हम master नहीं करेंगे, till the time we don't master these foundational lighthouse principles, we will not be able to master the art of loving each other. We will not be able to master the art of love, which is the ruling force of this world. We will not be able to master the art of heartfelt, meaningful relationships. And therefore, to understand these foundational principles is so absolutely crucial. This evening, I thought I would share with all of you one such principle. Just very soon, on the 14th of February, Valentine's Day coming soon, guys and girls will probably propose to each other. They will offer a rose to each other, probably call each other their Valentine. And it's so crucial and important, of paramount importance rather, to not just be obsessed by looks, to not just be obsessed by externals, to not just be obsessed by educational qualifications or compatibility, to not just be obsessed with the wealth or the background, to not just be obsessed with the modern sophistication, to not just be obsessed with the external charisma, but to look for developing those foundational lighthouse principles. देवी और सज्जनों, जब तक हम इन सिद्धांतों को, इन प्रिंसिपल्स पर, मूल्यों पर ध्यान नहीं देते, तब तक वैलेंटाइंस डे पे चाहे वो रिश्ता बन गया हो, चाहे वो रिश्ता टूट गया हो, चाहे वो रिश्ता पहले बना हो और इस वैलेंटाइंस डे पे आप रिकन्फर्म कर रहे हो, वो रिश्ता चलना मुश्किल हो जाता है। और चल भी जाए तो उस रिश्ते में प्यार नहीं होता, उस रिश्ते में प्रेम नहीं होता. You're wanting love to be the ruling force of our life, and therefore it's important that we pay attention to these principles. We're going to talk about one principle only this evening. बोलने के लिए तो बहुत सारी चीजें हैं, प्यार प्रेम की बातें होती है तो बहुत सारी चीजें बोली जा सकती है, लेकिन आज के इस सेशन में हम बस एक चीज पर फोकस करेंगे, एक चीज को ध्यान से भली भांति समझने की कोशिश करेंगे, और केवल समझने की नहीं, उसको अपने जीवन में उतारने की कोशिश करेंगे. We'll try to understand this one principle, and not just understand and decode it, but try and see if we can apply even a bit of this in our life, in our relationships, and transform the quality of our relationships. इसलिए मैं कई बार कहता हूँ, I say a lot of times, that makeup and knowledge are very similar actually, because both transform us only when applied. Makeup transforms our looks when it is applied, and knowledge transforms our life when it's applied. But for makeup and knowledge to work and transform us in their respective ways, we need to apply it. तो केवल समझिए नहीं, इसको फिर से सुनिए, इसकी चर्चा कीजिए और इसको अपने जीवन में उतारने की कोशिश कीजिए. Try and apply it in your lives and see if it can transform your relationships, your loving dealings with each other. And I'm going to get to the principle, that one principle that we're going to discuss this evening. But Preeti, thank you very much for joining. Kajal, Shukla, Vaishnav, Tej, I'm so happy that you're here with us for this live session today. We have Mere Pyare Mitro. Thank you, Mere Pyare Mitro. And thank you, Apna, Samod, Balaji, Moonlight, Rohit, and oh my God, I don't know, it just starts going so fast, so hard for me to give you a shout out. Pranita, so happy, Ameya, and Adarsh, Dadhe, and Nirvan, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm so glad that so many of you have joined us today. Arijit sir, tell us about one-sided love. We're going to talk about one-sided love, but not today. एक तरफा प्यार के बारे में मैं जरूर बात करने वाला हूँ अरिजीत, और अरिजीत सिंह का एक तरफा प्यार वाला गाना भी गाने वाला हूँ. but आज नहीं, वो आज की चर्चा का विषय नहीं है. That's not the topic for discussion today. We're going to do a live soon, and we will be talking. In fact, I was planning to talk about one-sided love today, but I decided to change it. बोलो पहले ही सेशन में one-sided love बोलेंगे, जरूर बोलेंगे. One full session only on एक तरफा प्यार. One-sided love. But today we'll stick to this principle. But anyways, thank you all so much for staying on. Thank you all so much for being with us to discuss this one principle of transforming our loving relationships. And here it is. That one principle that is foundational, that has lighthouse value, that is absolutely crucial, is open, heartfelt conversations. Open, heartfelt communication. एक दूसरे के बारे में बात करने से अच्छा एक दूसरे के साथ बात करना बहुत जरूरी है. Rather than talking about each other to others, that we talk to each other about ourselves. के साथ कीजिए. These open, heartfelt conversations are so important, ladies and gentlemen. मैं कई बार कहता हूँ, अगर रिश्तों का स्वाद सुधारना है ना, तो संवाद बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी होता है. In the word swad, there is wad, and in the word samvad, also there is wad. तो अगर आप संवाद करेंगे, तभी जाकर रिश्तों का स्वाद सुधरेगा. And what do we mean by samvad? Samvad means conversations. Samvad means discussions. Samvad means communication. Samvad means interaction. And it's so very important that we engage in this meaningful, honest, genuine, open-hearted conversations with each other. What do these conversations do to our relationships? The first very important aspect of samvad or open-hearted conversations is that this conversation or the samvad gives us the ability to understand the other person better. We cannot love the other person properly. We cannot deal with the other person properly. We cannot love the other person effectively if we do not understand that person. किसी व्यक्ति से प्यार करने के लिए उस व्यक्ति को समझना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी होता है. किसी व्यक्ति के साथ गहरा रिश्ता बनाने के लिए उस व्यक्ति को समझना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी होता है. It's so important to have knowledge about the other person, to understand the other person, understand their likes, their dislikes, understand their values, their belief systems, understand what makes them feel valued, understand what makes them feel hurt, understand what is the space they are coming from, understand what is the upbringing that they're coming from, understand what is the baggage that they're carrying along with them up until now at this stage in their lives. और जब तक बातें नहीं होगी तब तक ये समझना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. It's so funny that people meet each other and they just talk all kinds of rubbish at times, and that rubbish is needed. Those general conversations are needed where we can talk about a movie, where we can talk about a book we read, or we can talk about somebody else, what they're doing. We could probably talk about something very general. We could talk about food. We could talk about a place we traveled to, and that's all fine. But conversations, samvad, is more than discussion about a movie. It's more than discussion about the food we like. It's more than discussion about a place we travel to. It's more than discussion about a Netflix web series. It's more than discussion about social media. It's more than discussion about fashion and stuff that's going on Instagram. I tell you what, conversations are meant to understand each other. दूसरों के मन को, उनकी भावनाओं को, उनकी परवरिश को, उन्हें क्या खुश करता है, क्या नाराज करता है, उन्हें क्या चोट पहुंचाता है, इनको समझने की कोशिश करना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है देवियों, सज्जनों, दोस्तों. Such an important aspect of relationships is to understand. And because we don't understand, Because we don't give that time to understand, often we assume. And look at that word assume, like I always say. Spell the word assume. ASSUME. And you break it into parts. As you me. Assume me. As you me. Assume. And what does assumption or assuming do? It makes an ass out of you and me. I want to tell you a personal story of my relationship with my mom. My mother got herself a tiny little flat close to where she wanted to live. Small flat. And she wanted to also make me like a signatory in that flat, and she wanted to put my name. So I just kind of gave in. I decided to go ahead. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, I went to see her in a new house where she had shifted. And I was surprised to see that the nameplate had her name on top. And at the bottom was my name, and that was not a problem to me. But it was my previous legal name, not the spiritual name that I have now. And I was very upset, extremely upset. But why did she do that? Why would she make a nameplate with my previous old name? Why couldn't she just put my current spiritual name, which is Gaur Gopal Das? The world knows me as Gaur Gopal Das. Why couldn't she just take the trouble to tell the guy who's making the nameplate to just say just her name and then my name, Gaur Gopal Das? I was extremely upset. When I went to see her, I sat down. She brought me a lemonade. I had some lemonade and we were kind of chatting. I tried to keep quiet, but then somehow the topic of the house came and I was so upset. I said to her, how could you do this? Why could you just not ask me before you made a nameplate? Why could you just not call me and ask me what name should you write? And guess what, guys? I'd fallen into the trap of assumption. Conversations allow you to understand what has happened. Assumption is all guesswork. I didn't bother to chat with her. I didn't bother to ask her what had actually happened. I just came to a conclusion and was judgmental. And she said to me, will you allow me to say something, please? I said, yeah. If that's what you need to explain yourself, go ahead. And my mom said, I didn't make the nameplate. I didn't get it made. It was the guy who made the building, the builder, who decided after seeing all the contracts to add nameplates to each house even before we moved in. So the nameplate was already there when we got into this house. I didn't make it. And I felt sorry about it. That was not a samvad. It was one-sided. Samvad is two-sided. There's a conversation. And there's a conversation with a cool head. There's not a conversation with a hot head. There's a conversation where there's a discussion. There's a willingness to understand. And of course, some people, no matter how much you are willing to understand them, they just don't change. They just keep doing what they do and they just keep justifying that stuff. There's those cases also, and I'm not sure if they deserve a samvad after a few times. But if it's just not a regular thing, it's so important to have a conversation. Samvad, not a one-sided talk, but a dialogue. Dialogue. Two people talking, so that we do not fall into the trap of assumption. Your boyfriend said that, or your girlfriend said that, or your partner said that, or your spouse said that, or your husband said that, or your wife said that, or your colleague said that, or your father said that, or your mother said that. If they said that, have a conversation to understand why. Have a conversation. If they are hurt, have a conversation to figure out why they are hurt. If you are hurt, have a conversation to communicate why you are hurt. If you don't have a communication, if you don't have a conversation, you're not going to understand each other. And if we don't understand each other, there's no question of a meaningful relationship. And if there's no meaningful relationship, there is no question of true love, which is the ruling force of our lives. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a conversation, open, heartfelt, genuine, cool-headed conversation is important so that we do not fall into the trap of assumption, but we start understanding each other. कहा ना, दूसरों किसको किससे चोट पहुंचती है हम नहीं जानते. सबकी परवरिश अलग अलग होती है, सबका बैगेज अलग अलग होता है. We don't know what people are carrying in their heads. We don't know what people are carrying in their hearts. And each person has a different melting point. Each person has a different tolerance threshold. And it's so important for us to understand this. इसीलिए आज से कॉन्वर्सेशन शुरू कीजिए. तुरंत नहीं भी हुआ ना, शुरू कीजिए. Start the process of healthy conversations so you come out of the trap of assumptions and you get into the process of understanding. Do not make an ass out of you and me by the word assume. Here's the second aspect of why samvad, dialogues, or meaningful conversations are needed. But before that, a couple of shout out. Oh yes, gentlemen, hi, gentlemen, hi. Hi, gentlemen. Dolly, thank you for joining. KIIT, so happy to see you. Preetam, Boyar, gentlemen, hi, Harini, thank you for joining us this evening. Ankush and Naitik Sutar and Pratik Barhate, Kiran Mane, Meena Sharma, Abhishek. Thank you so much for all of you for joining us for this live session and discussion on love and loving relationships. Mahesh Shinde, so grateful that you've taken your time out to be with us today. Arnab and Adi Avasti, Richa, Anime, Jivika, Sahil, Debashish, and Gopal Deshinge. Thank you again for staying with us for this discussion on open, meaningful, heartfelt, genuine, cool-hearted conversations as the first aspect of conversations, so that we don't fall into the trap of assumptions and we can actually try to understand the other person. The second aspect of heartfelt conversations is, you know what? Everybody needs to feel valued. Everybody has the need to feel appreciated. Everybody has the need to feel acknowledged. The basic is acknowledgement, but the deeper aspect of acknowledgement is appreciation. The worst is neglect. People do so much for us and we just neglect it. The minimum is acknowledge. The maximum is appreciate. Of course, different people feel appreciated in different ways. Some people feel appreciated when you trust them. Some people feel appreciated when you give them responsibility. Some people feel appreciated in multiple ways. One of the ways that people feel deeply appreciated is through genuine words of appreciation as well. And when we have open, meaningful conversations, we are able to express that appreciation that we feel for the other person. एक बात याद रखना दोस्तों, सामने वाला कोई ईश्वर नहीं है, सामने वाला कोई भगवान नहीं है, सामने वाला कोई परमात्मा नहीं है. अपने दिल की बात, अपने दिल की सराहना, अपने मन की सराहना, अपने दिल का अप्रिशिएशन बोलना चाहिए. सामने वाले को अपने दिल की अप्रिशिएटिव बातें सुनानी चाहिए. We should learn the art of making others feel valued and appreciated. Conversations are absolutely essential because it is in these conversations that we get the opportunity to share how much we value the other person, how much we love the other person. And those words, genuine heartfelt words, are an incredible investment in the account of love. प्यार पनपता है, प्यार बढ़ता है, प्रेम की बढ़ोतरी होती है. Love increases, love compounds, love enhances, love escalates based on this incredible aspect of open conversations. Appreciation. There's a big difference between flattery and appreciation. Flattery is not heartfelt. Flattery is not genuine. And often flattery is not even the truth. मतलब चढ़ा रहे हैं जैसे पेड़ पे चढ़ा रहा है, पेड़ पे चढ़ाएंगे तो गिर भी जाएगा. Flattery makes a person arrogant. Flattery can make a person egoistic. Flattery can make a person proud. As against flattery, appreciation is genuine. Appreciation is heartfelt. Appreciation is seeing the genuine good in the others. Appreciation is truthful. Appreciation is accepting of the other person's imperfections as well. We're not looking for perfection in the other person. When we appreciate, we know that there are imperfections. When we appreciate, we know that there are shortcomings. When we appreciate, we know that there are pitfalls. When we appreciate, we know that there are mistakes. But we are looking at the good, the beautiful. We're looking at the precious. We're looking at the valuable. And we are genuinely expressing how we value the valuable that they have, how we value the beautiful side of that their personality. And therefore, don't flatter, but appreciate. And conversations bring out appreciation. When we converse, when we discuss, जब हम संवाद करते हैं, तो संवाद के दौरान सराहना की भावनाएं आती हैं, सराहना की बातें आती हैं, appreciation की बातें होती हैं. There was a little boy about 5 years old. He was with his grandmother. Both of them had gone to the zoo. And they were standing in a queue where the local artist there was painting the faces of kids. बच्चों के फेस कई बार स्पेशली विदेश में जू में पेंट करते हैं, शेर के जैसे, चीता के जैसे, लेपर्ड के जैसे, ऐसे डॉट 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 बना के उनके फेस को पेंट करते हैं और फिर उनको लगता है कि हम जू में आए तो चीता जैसे घूम रहे हैं, शेर जैसे घूम रहे हैं. So there's a local artist who was painting the faces of kids with tigers, tiger-like marks, with leopard-like marks. And this lady, the grandmother, was standing with the grandchild who was 5 years old in the queue. And there was one boy standing right in front of this 5-year-old boy. He turned to this boy. And this boy had freckles on his face and all over his body. You know what freckles are? Freckles are like those brown spots you have. You might have seen sometimes people have those freckles, especially in the West, people can have those freckles. And then this boy saw these freckles on this 5-year-old. He said, why do you need to get your face painted? You're already a leopard. You're already a cheetah with all these freckles on you. A very insensitive statement. The boy started crying. He started weeping. The grandmother came down on her knees. She held the face of her 5-year-old grandson, looked into his eyes, and said, you know something? The most beautiful thing that God created, freckles. If there's anything I ever wanted in my life, it was freckles. Always as a child, as a little girl, I dreamt I would have freckles, but I never had them. The most beautiful thing, Sunny, freckles. The grandson looked at the grandmother and said, really, Grandma? She said, absolutely, 100%, hand on my heart, the most beautiful things, freckles. The boy held the grandmother's cheeks, her face in his hand, little tiny hands, and said, you know something, Grandma? There's something more beautiful God created than freckles. The grandmother, with an amused look, asked, what? The boy said, touching one of her wrinkles, said, wrinkles. She appreciated and accepted him for his freckles. He appreciated her and accepted her for her wrinkles. It's so important that we don't just go for perfection. We'll all have imperfection. We'll all have shortcomings. And to be able to accept everybody completely and fully, to be able to appreciate people for who they are and not to appreciate them eventually for what we want them to be, is so crucial. And when we have some dialogue, when we have heartfelt conversations, there's a facility to pour our heart and let the other person know how special that person is. When you go to some people, they make you feel that they are important. But when you go to some other genuine people, in that conversation, they make you feel that you are important. And it is in such conversations that appreciation thrives and love grows. And therefore, the second aspect of this principle of conversation is the facility to pour our hearts out and genuinely appreciate each other, which is one of the most powerful investment in a loving relationship. And therefore, when we are talking about the principle of conversations, firstly, have this samvad so you can understand the person. Only when we understand, we get out of the trap of assumptions. And when we get out of the traps of assumption, understand their likes, dislikes, their values, their beliefs, what hurts them, what makes them feel happy, what space they come from. all of these aspects, it is then that we can truly love them and serve them. And the second aspect of samvad or open-hearted, open-minded conversations is that it gives us the facility to express our hearts by expressing a genuine appreciation and acceptance for who they are and not who we want them to be. And here's the last and the final aspect, the third aspect of the principle of conversations or samvad. Yashaswini, thank you so much for joining. What is love exactly? I always say love is not a noun. Love is a verb. What is love? Love is not words. Love is action. It's not a noun, it's a verb. Anybody can say the three words, I love you. But it's way more than these words. Anybody can have some emotional, sentimental, touchy feelings. Love is way more than those feelings. Love is way more than the three words, I love you. Love is way more than those touchy feelings, romantic feelings, or those emotional, senti feelings. Love, the foundation of love, is to serve, to please. We serve to please the beloved. प्यार वो होता है जब हम जिससे हम प्यार करते हैं उनको खुश करना चाहे और उनको खुश करने के लिए हम उनके लिए उनकी सेवा करते हैं, उनके लिए जीते हैं. We act for their welfare, we act for their growth, we act for their pleasure, and of course it has to be both sided. वो एक तरफा प्यार की बात करेंगे हम कभी, जहाँ एक साइड से हो रहा है दूसरे साइड से कुछ नहीं, मैं ही सेवा कर रहा हूँ, वहां से कुछ नहीं. I am only acting for their pleasure. They don't care to act for our pleasure. That we will talk later in another session. But Yashaswini, that is what love is. It's not just a noun. It's a verb, action. It's not words. It's beyond words. It's not feelings. It's beyond feelings. It's action to serve, to please, to act for the welfare of the beloved. And yes, there are words. Like we said, appreciation must be there. Conversation must be there. And yes, there are feelings. But what is the value of the words and feelings when there's no action to please and to act for the welfare of the beloved? But Kushi, thank you very much. Namaskar, Swapnil. Yeah, I would really love to do this session also on forced love. Indeed, Nandini, thank you for joining us and being with us this evening. Gayatri, Puri Das Bhandarkar, Shashi, Bharti, Kiran Mane again, Rohit. Thank you, Nishant, Kushal, and Deepak Kumar. So happy that you're all with us. Sher Singh, thank you for joining us again. Nandini Shukla, Ronak, very, very grateful. Lopamudra Das, thank you. Thank you for your compliment that we are giving multiple dimensions of the word love and this principle of open, heartfelt conversations as well. But very, very grateful again that you all taken your time out and have joined us for this live session this evening. The love, the ruling force of our life, especially on the occasion of Valentine's Day coming soon. So we thought we will discuss about love and we will continue this discussion for the next 1 or 2 weeks till Valentine's Day on different platforms. So do join us on other platforms. Stay tuned for announcements on where we are going to do these live sessions on the principle of love. I'll be talking about different dimensions. Today we are taking conversations alone as a foundational principle of good relationships and love. But here's the last aspect of open-hearted conversations, संवाद. ये आखिरी चीज मैं आप सबसे बोलना चाहता हूँ. संवाद क्यों जरूरी होता है? बातें करना क्यों जरूरी होता है? You know what? Sometimes we are hurt by what other people do. And sometimes others are hurt by what we do. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes others make mistakes. And if there's no conversation, if I am hurt by somebody's behavior, and if I can't explain, if I can't talk to them, if I can't communicate with them, if I can't have this samvad and explain, of course in a nice, gentle, nice way, but if I can't explain, if I can't tell them, those people are going to continue their behavior and continue doing what they do, and they continue to hurt us. Similarly with me. If I am being hurtful to somebody and the other person doesn't communicate, the other person doesn't express, the other person doesn't tell, how do I know? How do I know that they are hurt? मुझे कैसे समझ में आएगा कि उनको चोट पहुंची है? उनको कैसे समझ में आएगा कि मुझे चोट पहुंची है? उनको कैसे समझ में आएगा? तो अगर एक दूसरे को समझना है कि क्या हो रहा है दिल में, कैसे, क्यों क्यों ये चोट पहुंची है, केवल अप्रिशिएशन ही नहीं बोलना है जी. It's not just expressing appreciation. It's also expressing the uncomfortable things. It's also important that we talk about those things that we're not, they're not the most pleasant things to talk about. कई बार रिश्ते में ना हम लोग कम्युनिकेशन में मार खा जाते हैं. अच्छी चीजें तो बोल भी दें हम लोग, लेकिन जो चीजें उतनी अच्छी नहीं होती, जिन चीजों से हम कंफर्टेबल नहीं है, जिन चीजों से हमें चोट पहुंचती, उनको भी तो, उनकी चर्चा भी तो होना जरूरी है ना. जिंदगी भर का रिश्ता है, a lifelong relationship. If you can't talk, if you can't share that this is what's making me uncomfortable, or this is what's hurting me, or if they cannot share that this in you is making me uncomfortable or feeling hurt, कैसे चलेगा जी? How is it going to work? So absolutely essential to have those conversations where we can speak up. And you know what? A lot of times we do not speak up, either because we are shy, timid, or probably because we don't want to create a ruckus, or probably we are scared of losing the other person, or probably we are scared of spoiling our image in the eyes of the other person. We do not want to embrace that discomfort. You know what, guys? It's better to have short-term discomfort in a relationship than having a long-term dysfunction. You have to choose discomfort or dysfunction. For a short time, there may be discomfort in speaking openly, but in the long term, it will function well. On the other hand, in the short term, you may embrace the comfort of not bringing it up, but in the long term, that relationship becomes dysfunctional. दोस्तों, उन uncomfortable चीजों की बातें करना भी बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी होता है. In that situation, we need humility. We need to keep our egos aside. When we get feedback from others, or even when we are giving feedback, to be very genuine. बहती गंगा में हाथ नहीं धोना है. दिल की बात बोलनी है सुधारने के लिए, उस रिश्ते को सुधारने के लिए, उस रिश्ते को की वैल्यू बनाए रखने के लिए. So important, isn't it, guys? That we open up, we talk. There are uncomfortable things that happen in life. गलतियां होती है, कभी छोटी, कभी बड़ी-बड़ी गलतियां होती है. I'll conclude with this story. I know a gentleman who was living abroad. His wife lives here in Mumbai. They were married for over 30 years. They have a son. Now the son is married as well. But when this happened, the son was about 18, 19 years old. He was studying in a very reputed college in a very reputed university in Mumbai. The father was based outside of India because he was working outside, earning a lot of money. Wealthy family. They had a very beautiful house here in south of Mumbai, in the very elitist place of Mumbai. And I knew both the husband, the wife, and of course I knew the son as well, the entire family. One late morning, I received a call from this gentleman from overseas. And initially there was like, pleasantries, courtesy talk, aap kaise hain, how are you, all well, is everything going good with you, and all those things. And then slowly and steadily, it takes a lot of courage actually. It takes a lot of courage and humility to open up with your weaknesses, with your pitfalls, the mistakes we make. He started by telling me that how much he loves his wife. He married for over 30 years. How much he loves his son. He loves his family. And his wife loves him as well. Wonderful, sweet family. And he kept praising them, kept saying how this relationship matters the most to him. And then he said, but in the last 6 months, I have fallen for a woman here in the country that I'm working. She's a colleague. She works with me. And initially it just began with kind of friendship. And it kind of started with a few interactions. We would go out for coffee, where we would do our work together. We would have our meetings together. It kind of became a good friendship. And from friendship, eventually, we started visiting each other's home. I invited her over home. I'm a good cook, so I started cooking. She would sometimes come over. I cooked dinner for her, and she was very happy with the wonderful food that I cooked. And one evening, the conversation went on for a very long time. It was late in the night. Her house was a distance away and wasn't very safe to drive back at that point so late in the night. So she decided to stay over. I was taking a lot for him to open up and reveal his heart. It was taking a lot because he's just kind of now opening up and sharing. He said she stayed over, and that night, he said, I slipped. She was a divorcee. Of course, she was looking for love. She was looking for affection. And she found that love and affection in him. She wasn't she was a great woman. Not like a woman who would, she was a really nice person. But she slipped and I slipped. And he said, I love my wife and I love my family. And to me, this has only been a friendship. And I thought it was just a friendship, but whatever had to happen, happened. And he asked me, what do I do now? I said to him, the first thing that you need to do is call your wife and talk to her. And if you feel that it's very difficult to have a conversation over phone or over a video call or over a video Skype call, you probably want to fly down for a week, 10 days, whatever. But it's very crucial for you to have this conversation, this samvad with your wife. You may avoid it with your son if you want to, okay. If you don't want with your son, it's all right. But it's very important that you have this conversation with your wife. If that relationship matters to you and if you want to continue in that relationship. He said 100% it matters to me. He said, she's just a friend. We slipped. And it was kind of getting a little closer. And I knew that. But that day it kind of crossed a certain boundary. But I kind of have come to my senses, and she knows that as well. And we are sorry about it. We realized that it was a slip. I said, you must talk to your wife, whether in person or on a phone call or on a video call, whatever, you must talk to your wife. Have this open-hearted conversation. Tell her. It'll be extremely uncomfortable, but discomfort, short-term discomfort is better than long-term dysfunction. Short-term inconvenience is better than long-term devastation. Short-term inconvenience, but long-term convenience, guys. So talk to her. Talk to her. Be honest. I know it's going to require courage and humility. Keeping your ego aside. Be honest. Win her trust first. She will trust you if you open up. If she finds out later, you will lose your trustworthiness. किसी और से यही बात अगर मालूम पड़े ना, आपकी trustworthiness खत्म हो जाएगी. Better you share it rather than somebody else telling her at some point in time later in the future. Better you share it. Let it come from you, because when it comes from you, she will know that you value that relationship. She will be angry in the beginning. She'll be upset. She may even disconnect with you for a while. But trust me, she will trust you. Why? Because you've been honest. You've been honest. And once you speak to her, I will also speak to her. He decided to talk to her. It took a lot. He actually flew down and he came over to Mumbai. He spoke to her. And she was obviously upset. She was obviously disturbed. She was obviously very agitated by what he had done. But when I met her, alone, not with him, she said that she really appreciated his honesty to come and have that genuine, open-hearted, honest conversation. जैसे मैं कई बार कहता हूँ, भूल करना प्रकृति है, मान लेना संस्कृति है, और सुधार लेना प्रगति है. We all make mistakes. भूल सब करते हैं. प्रकृति है, नेचर है, किससे नहीं होती गलतियां, कभी छोटी होती, कभी बड़ी होती है. All make mistakes in all relationships, with parents, with spouses, with lovers, with partners, with colleagues. सब गलतियां करते हैं. So भूल करना प्रकृति है. Making mistakes are part of our nature. मान लेना संस्कृति है. To accept that I made a mistake is culture. Sanskriti. It needs courage. It needs humility. It needs gut. It needs strength. It needs inner fortitude to say, I went wrong. I am wrong. I am sorry for what I did. Do I deserve another chance so I can show you Sudhar Lena? Progress and evolution is about correcting that mistake. I told the lady, it's not that he's doing this kind of stuff. He slipped, but he loves you. He loves your family. Such a lovely son. I think he deserves a chance. If you think he deserves a chance too, you must give him a chance. You can be angry, you can be upset with him for a while, but if you're angry and upset with him all the time, he's not going to correct his mistakes. He'll make more mistakes and he'll hide those mistakes. लोग गलतियां छिपाएंगे, लोग गलतियां करते रहेंगे, कभी जानबूझकर. गुस्सा होना ठीक है, अपसेट होना ठीक है. गुस्सा सबको आता है ना, कोई गलती करता है. उस गुस्से को लेकर बैठ के नहीं चलेगा. People will hide their mistakes if we treat them that way. And she agreed. And they're a lovely family. Of course, they're doing extremely well there now. The son is now married, doing extremely well professionally as well, and a beautiful family. और इसीलिए conversation बहुत जरूरी होते हैं. And conversations में we don't just understand each other to love each other better. We don't just appreciate each other to make each other feel valued through conversations. We also bring up the uncomfortable side of our life. Sometimes things that hurt us in dealings with each other. Sometimes mistakes that we have made or they may have made. Sometimes priorities that may not be up to the mark on both sides. Short-term discomfort, but that will help us avoid long-term dysfunction. And therefore, the lighthouse principle that we heard this evening was Samvad. Open, heartfelt conversations with each other. The first aspect of that conversation, it helps us to come out of the trap of assumptions and helps us to understand each other better. And it is with that understanding that we can love and serve each other better. The second aspect of that conversation, it is in those conversations that we can make each other feel valued and appreciated by sharing how we value each other right from the core of our heart, not by flattering them and making them egoistic, but by genuinely appreciating them and making them feel valued and humbled. And the third aspect of Samvad and conversations is to also bring up the uncomfortable, the unpleasant, which we very often avoid. पहले दो तो कर भी लेते हैं, लेकिन तीसरा कई बार हम अवॉइड करते हैं. बोला ना, क्योंकि हम शर्माते हैं कई बार. We're just timid, that's how our upbringing has been. Or sometimes we just don't want to spoil our image in the eyes of the others. Sometimes we're just pretentious, whatever the reason may be. We just don't want to embrace that discomfort sometimes. It's an absolute essential thing. I know in the ashram, the monastery that I live, some of our people here, we did not take up open conversations with them to avoid discomfort. And God, what it has come up to is inexplicable. I can't even talk about it here. Just because we avoided that discomfort of that inconvenience of having an open conversation and bringing up those unpleasant things, तब के लिए चल गया. बाद का उसका impact, long-term impact, not the best. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, on this Valentine's Day to come, just an occasion, but it's true for all relationships, as I said. learn this lighthouse principle of samvad, dialogue, open-hearted, genuine, heartfelt, cool-headed conversations. And bring these three aspects to your conversations: understanding, appreciation, and discomfort, apparent discomfort in discussing the unpleasant things. Once again, thank you all so much for being with us today. And I really look forward to seeing you all again very soon in the month of February. This was the live session for January. We'll meet you all again in the month of February for another live session with another interesting topic for discussion. Until then, stay safe, stay happy. For all of you who are going to be celebrating the Valentine's Day on the 14th, wish you a happy Valentine's Day too. Share saying thank you for joining us this evening. Divya, Rawat, Himanshu, very, very grateful that you were with us. Parth Patel, thank you for being with us. Parth, Saurav Rajput, and Vidya Goswami, Umesh. So happy that you were with us. Pallavi, Bobby, uh, very, very grateful that you took out your time and joined us for this live session this evening. We will definitely see each other very soon for another live session in the month of February, and hoping that we will also do a live question and answer session because all of you have so many questions. Maybe in Feb or March, one of the months, we will take up a live question and answer session where I can answer some of your questions through our live interaction. Wish you all a great evening ahead. If you're in India, if you're in other parts of the world, wish you a great day. Thank you all very much. Stay safe, stay happy, stay home if you're in any risk of COVID. Thank you all very much.